Hey folks, welcome to Texas. I'm Bill Landis. That's Jeremy Birmingham. Thank you for joining us here on the podcast daily to get your Tuesday started. We are in Irving, Texas, at the site of the media headquarters here for the Cotton Bowl. Ohio State playing Missouri later on this week at AT&T Stadium, which is, 20 or so minutes from here, Berm. It's a different kind of setup for us here. We're used to Ohio State and whoever it's playing coming to us for bowl media availabilities. This week we'll be going to them, so we'll be out at AT&T Stadium a couple times this week for open practices, for interviews with Ohio State's offense and defense, for interviews with Ryan Day and Eli Drinkwitz, the head coach of Missouri, on Thursday. But we're here. It's finally here, Cotton Bowl week, Berm. What is on your mind, I guess, as we are now on the ground here in Texas?
Last year and throughout the last couple of years, the Ohio State media team has always dropped these little tidbits of information in photographs of who they are. Remember last year or the Rose Bowl a couple of years ago, they dropped a bunch of pictures of Chris Olave through the week, and then he didn't play. We haven't seen any photos of Marvin Harrison yet. We have seen
Marvin was in either a still or a video getting off the bus.
Right, but
he's here.
Not practice photos.
Right.
Where we did see TreVeyon Henderson in full pads and other stuff like that. So, ultimately this week is about the Ohio State Buckeye football team washing the bad taste of the last game out of their mouths. And so the thing I'm really most looking forward to or trying to gauge is how dialed in these guys are, because this is not a game that Ohio State is looking at as we made it. We're in the Cotton Bowl. Let's celebrate. Yeah. This is we need to fix things and make sure that this season ends on a positive note. And I think that's what has motivated a lot of the discussion and a lot of the decisions that have been made over the last 3 weeks about who's playing and who's returning and all that stuff. And nobody's announced anything beyond Friday's game. And I don't know that decisions will change based on the outcomes of Friday's game, but to me, it's about, are those guys who are coming back for this game that maybe could have opted out, are they ready to commit to the 2024 Ohio State Buckeyes? And I don't know if we're going to get those answers, but I think you need to get them soon, because Ohio State, we're coming off of National Signing Day, and they're in that roster purgatory, and there needs to be some answers.
So later on Tuesday, we might have an opportunity for that. So it's the defense interview day for Ohio State on Tuesday. So it's coordinator Jim Knowles, linebacker Steele Chambers will be talking. You guys can walk through.
Feel free.
Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, I was recording.
You're totally okay.
We're standing. We decided to sit here.
Yeah.
Okay, I love it.
Yeah. Jim Knowles will be talking. Linebacker Steele Chambers, cornerback Denzel Burke, defensive tackle Tyleik Williams, defensive end Jack Sawyer. I think that's everyone. Did I say Ty Hamilton?
Yeah.
Ty Hamilton as well. So that's a good crop of guys that we are expecting those kind of answers from. So I don't know that I'm on alert for getting definitive yes or no on coming back in 2024. Austin and I talked about this last week. I don't know that all of these guys deciding to play. And at the moment, I think that the handful that we're still uncertain about are Mike Hall, JT Tuimoloau, TreVeyon Henderson, Marvin Harrison Jr. But everyone else has said they're playing, basically. Anyone else who think is on the fence has said they're playing. I don't think it's an automatic indication that they're back for next year. I thought some of the guys, when they talked a few weeks ago, like Jordan Hancock, for instance, I thought was hinting that he was perhaps leaning towards staying. But I also think things can happen in this game that might push somebody to the NFL. So I think it's very possible and certainly I think understandable that a lot of these guys we're talking about maybe have not made up their mind just yet. But, we might. Ryan Day said they were going to have a team meeting when they landed here on the 23rd to talk about some of that stuff. There's not been any announcements since then. Maybe some of that stuff will start to come out here in the next day or two.
Because they can't hide it.
Yeah, eventually we're going to go practice.
We're going to be at practice in 4 hours from now. When this runs on Tuesday morning at 5 a.m., we're going to be at practice and watching and seeing who's out there in full pads and who's out there participating. So the big questions about, and again, I don't think anyone fully or reasonably expects Marvin Harrison to play. If he does, kudos to him, and I think he should be celebrated like crazy if he does. But if he doesn't, it's not a big deal. The bigger question to me is JT Tuimoloau, because we have heard for a while that it may be that he's leaning toward returning, and if we can't put any stock into the decisions to play this week, go ahead. Then can you put any stock into people not announcing? Feel free to watch your step there. The fact that he hasn't done that is a little bit, I don't want to say concerning, but it is informative, I think, in some way, because TreVeyon Henderson has at least come out and said, I have not made up my mind.
Yes.
So you're getting some sort of call to action or response from him, but there's been nothing from JT Tuimoloau, which is kind of confusing, only in that we've all heard that there's a good chance he's leaning towards returning.
He's the first guy I'm hopeful to get eyeballs on when we get to practice at AT&T Stadium later on Tuesday morning, because, like you said, I'm not expecting to see Marvin. We know TreVeyon's practicing. Whether or not that means he's actually going to play, is yet to be learned. And I don't know. I don't think we know just yet who's going to talk on the offensive interview day. So obviously, if TreVeyon's doing interviews, that's probably a pretty good indication. But he also doesn't like doing interviews, so I wouldn't take that as an indication one way or the other necessarily. But yeah, JT is the guy that I'm going to try to immediately locate when we get out there in the practice field. It's just a 15-minute window. I don't know. Typically we don't see a whole lot when they do these things. We'll see some stretching probably. I know, like last year, you guys got to watch actually like Devin Brown throw the ball around a little bit, and was kind of eye-opening when that happened down at the Peach Bowl.
So they gave us like an hour last year.
Oh, it was more than 15.
Yeah.
Maybe the weird thing is, again, inside baseball, the thing that's weird about the media availabilities here is, like I said, typically they bring coaches and players to wherever the media hotel is. Now we are going to the stadium, but we're going to watch the first 15 minutes of practice, and then interviews are after practice. So we're just going to be at the stadium for like 3 hours, kind of doing nothing, I guess. I
don't know how they keep you from seeing what happens.
Yeah, so maybe we'll get to see.
We're going to be ushered into a room and be like, don't you leave this room. I don't know how they're doing that.
So we'll see. But what I don't know, depending on what that window looks like, what do you look for on a day like an open bowl practice?
It depends on what Ohio State shows us, because obviously we've seen the program, again, because it is this time of year, everything sort of rides on what the program is putting out, but we've seen what feels like a concerted effort to really put Devin Brown in the forefront over the last week or so. We saw the NIL stuff on social media on Christmas Day, him giving out headphones to the team.
Yep.
I want to see him throw the ball. I'm a big believer that Devin Brown is the type of player who, knowing that he has the vote of confidence from Ryan Day, knowing that this is his job to lose at this point, and it undoubtedly is, I think that he's the type of player that responds to that very, very well, and will lean into it. So I want to see him go out there and rip the football around the field. And I don't know if we're going to see that, because generally when we get these 15-minute windows, as you said, we get stretching, we get special teams, we get punt, and that's it. But it was, I think, informative and intentional for Ohio State to put Devin Brown in the spotlight over these last few days. You could see, that being that's what the game's about. I mean, this game is about the future of Ohio State football, and what happens at quarterback will ultimately decide that, I think. Yeah,
I think it'll be interesting to maybe see what it looks like when it's like kind of Devin's team too, right? Again, maybe there won't be tremendous opportunities for that, but I'm not surprised to hear, like, probably more than anything else about Devin Brown since he kind of took over here, is his leadership qualities, how much guys are just sort of like naturally drawn to him. And it's all stuff we heard about him when they were doing the quarterback competition in the first place. And in fact, like I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say like that was probably a notch in Devin's favor when compared to Kyle McCord. Not that Devin's a better leader per se, but just like a different kind of leader. Like it's more kind of wear it on your sleeves kind of thing than Kyle was. And I think that Ryan Day liked that. It was about consistency on the field. I think ultimately that led him to the decision that he made about who was going to play in the games. But now there's no worry for that. So now Devin gets to kind of use those leadership qualities on the field and see if that can't galvanize the team around him. I'm curious what like the receiver stuff looks like when we get out there. If assuming Marvin is not a part of practice or is a later participant in practice, like this should be an opportunity for Carnell Tate and perhaps Brandon Innes to step up. I'm kind of interested to see where Xavier Johnson is, because if he's maybe at running back, maybe that's a tell that they're not expecting TreVeyon to play a whole lot. And even if TreVeyon does play, I still think probably you need to put Xavier at running back more, because you only have 2 scholarship running backs with you here in Dallas if you are Ohio State. So if Xavier Johnson is more running back, then even with Emeka Ibuka, I think that can be more receiver stuff for a kid like a Brandon Innes. So there's some moving parts there on the offense that I think we're going to want to get our eyes on to try to figure out how it's all coming together. Not that we'll have the full picture, obviously, until the game on Friday night, but this is Tuesday morning will be the first kind of step towards figuring out how Ohio State's going to attack this.
It's the first time we've seen Ohio State practice since August in any way, shape, or form. So, one of the things I commented about in the early part of the season, and I've had this sort of running concern, is that there isn't a vocal leader on this team. And so I think the presence of someone like Devin Brown doing it his way may be that much more important for Ohio State, because the leadership group on this team has been the quiet guys. And maybe you don't always need that rah-rah guy, but I think you need one of them at least.
Yeah,
you need somebody to take that role.
Yeah.
I'm also, again, it's been the Christmas weekend. Everyone's seen all this stuff flying around. There was a very interesting podcast that included Carson Hinsman back home in Wisconsin. I believe it was on Friday. And he was...
Since deleted.
Since deleted. He was openly discussing a lot of things that, generally speaking, you don't hear the players talk about in an open forum. One of the things he said was that he thinks Matthew Jones may take some reps at center in this game to prepare Matthew Jones for the NFL Senior Bowl. And Bill, is that the dumbest thing we've ever heard, or is it a sign that maybe the job for center is open next spring and this is the polite way of saying it?
Yeah, I mean, what's more beneficial for Ohio State, preparing Matthew Jones to play for a team that's not Ohio State next year, or to keep preparing Carson Hinsman to be this team's center of the future? I think it's the latter. So we had heard a little bit about that, like that maybe Matthew Jones is playing some center, and perhaps Carson Hinsman was even doing a little bit of guard work. So there's going to be some moving pieces, I think, on that offensive line. But
that's not one where you think of
no. Listen, it's a move that I was very much in favor of, like mid-season.
Yeah.
To do it now, I think would be a little frustrating. I think it's great for Matthew Jones if he can get that film out there, but it would be odd, yes, and it would maybe fly in the face a little bit of treating this like a real game if you're getting that drastic with moving guys around for that purpose.
Just for Senior Bowl practice is bizarre to me. But again, I do wonder if it signals that the Josh Padilla, Carson Hinsman battle for spring is wide open.
Yeah.
Which I don't think anyone would have thought heading, you look at this year and you look at all the parts that come back next year that are for sure, and you think, hey, should have 4 offensive linemen returning starters. And now you're going, well, maybe we'll just take the apex again and blow it up. Yeah,
well, maybe, I don't know. Maybe you think Carson Hinsman's better off at guard because there's going to be we know there's going to be an open guard spot with Matthew Jones going off to the NFL. So they're going to have to do something up there. This is not the route I would have guessed if that's ultimately how it ends up playing out. But I don't know. I guess on the other hand, I would be excited to watch Matthew Jones play some center. I think Matthew Jones is really good and underappreciated for how good he is, because he just plays an unglamorous position that people don't pay a lot of attention to. So maybe that'll put him in a little bit more of a spotlight. Anything else on your mind, Brian, before we wrap this episode
up? We don't expect to see Tommy Eichenberg play this week, I don't think. Cody Simon naturally will fit in there. I've really, and I know I'm a broken record, and I know maybe it sounds like I'm pandering, but if you're playing Matthew Jones center in this game, you're telling me that you're willing to do some things to experiment. And to me, that means CJ Hicks has to play a lot of reps in place of Steel Chambers in this game and see what he can do.
Yeah.
Missouri has, and I understand the rationale not to, because Missouri runs the ball very well, and that's their bread and butter, and that's what they want to do, and it's physical. And maybe CJ's not as ready for that as Steele would be, or as experienced in that situation. But I don't care. I want to see CJ Hicks, and I want to see him playing next to Cody Simon for a lot of reps in this game. And so how he's put out in practice, if we get again, big asterisk, if we get a chance to see that portion of practice in any way, I want to know where he is at, because that clock is ticking, and it's time to see what those younger linebackers can do. Because here we are, it's the 26th of December, the transfer portal closes in a week, and Ohio State hasn't added anybody yet. So I know you have another window, but the idea was pretty clear that you needed to add a linebacker in this portal window.
I mean, they thought they did. They did. Then they hosted one for a visit. They didn't get them. So Jim Knowles in May, way back in May, said that at some point this year you will see CJ Hicks unleashed. They got one game left to do it.
Is it time to? It's the Greg Schiano. Is it time to talk about Tennessee?
I mean, I want to ask Jim Knowles that. If for one, you said this, it didn't happen. Why didn't it happen? So then, what's next for CJ? Whether that's at linebacker or rush end, as we theorize about him too. Maybe if JT doesn't play in this game, which again we don't know at this point, maybe that's an opportunity to try some different stuff out up on the defensive line. We'll see. There's a lot to get into on Tuesday and then throughout the week here. So interviews Tuesday, interviews Wednesday, interviews Thursday, game on Friday. We'll be back with dailies
We'll
every
have
day, snap
daily
judgments.
snap judgments after practice availability. Probably not right after practice. So it'll probably be after the interview session. So around 2:00 Central Time. So around 3:00 Eastern Time. We do think maybe we're going to try to do something with the Roosters Bowl winners here in Dallas, maybe Thursday. But other than that, snap judgments, the dailies, normal stuff. Austin will be arriving here in Dallas in about an hour and a half. And then it's, back to normal.
Yep. So looking forward to bringing you a week of coverage here from Dallas until we talk to you guys later on Tuesday. That's Birmingham Bill. Thanks for watching.